Diane has set a chessboard full of traps for both Kyle and Jack. If she succeeds in carrying out her plot, Kyle will have to learn a hard lesson: never displease his mother. The betrayal from the mother he once trusted will be the biggest shock in Kyle's life. As for Jack, anger will explode when he discovers that Diane has actually betrayed him. Diane Jenkins, an ambitious woman, has turned into a schemer and ruthless person, no longer caring about family or love. She is willing to sacrifice everything, even her closest loved ones, to achieve her goals. And in the world of the young and the restless, there is no more cruel betrayal than betrayal from within her own family. This scenario not only creates a dramatic power struggle but also pushes Diane's character to new heights of ruthlessness and ambition. The complex relationship between mother and daughter, between love and power, keeps viewers glued to their seats. Will Diane succeed in taking over Jabot, or will she finally pay the price for her betrayal? The answers will gradually be revealed in the next episodes of The Young and the Restless. Subscribe to Yonder to stay up to date with the latest news on our channel. Young and the Restless full episode Friday, October 11th reveals Claire is about to face one of the toughest choices of her life. She finds herself caught between two powerful forces, the turmoil brewing between Kyle and Jack on one side, and her loyalty to the Newman family on the other. These tensions are threatening to spiral out of control, and Claire knows that any wrong move could have devastating consequences for all involved. It all starts when Claire senses that there has been another breakdown in the already fragile relationship between Kyle and Jack. Jack, despite his best efforts to remain positive and hopeful about mending the broken pieces of his family, is constantly confronted with Kyle's growing bitterness. The gap between them seems to be growing wider, and Jack must try to salvage whatever remains of their father-son relationship. Jack refrains from directly mentioning the theft of the formula that caused so much chaos, but Claire is perceptive enough to realize that Kyle has done something to betray Jack's trust. As Claire watches the interactions unfold, she notices the subtle tension in the way Kyle avoids certain topics, the occasional flicker of guilt on his face. It's a feeling she can't shake. Kyle is hiding something big, and it could tear their family apart if discovered. One evening, as Claire and Jack sit in the family's lavish but strangely quiet living room, Jack finally admits his uncertainty about the future. His voice, usually so strong and authoritative, shakes slightly as he speaks. "I don't know where we go from here, Claire," Jack confesses, his eyes sad, showing a vulnerability rarely seen in those close to him. "Kyle? He's not the same. I don't want to lose him, but I feel like every step I take to bring us closer together just pushes him further away." Claire, ever the confidant, listens carefully, torn between providing the comfort Jack needs and her unwavering loyalty to the Newman Empire. Jack continues, expressing his fear that Kyle, once his closest ally, is positioning himself as a potential rival, a threat not just to Jabot, but to the very legacy Jack has spent his life building. "I don't want Kyle to become another Victor," Jack admits, and the name of his longtime rival hangs in the air like a ghost that refuses to leave. "I never wanted this. I've been fighting Victor for decades, and I can't bear the thought of going through the same battle with my own son." Jack's plea is more than advice. He is asking Claire to help him prevent Kyle from becoming the next Victor Newman, a cold and calculating businessman who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. Jack knows that Kyle has the potential to cause major problems, not only for Jabot, but for their family, if his reckless actions continue unchecked. Claire is now faced with an impossible decision. Jack, clearly exhausted and confused, is asking her to step in and help him prevent Kyle from making decisions that could irreparably harm both Jabot and the Abbott family. Claire, torn between the loyalty she feels to Jack, who has always treated her with respect and care, and the duty she has to her family, the Newmans find themselves caught in the middle of a war between the company and the family. Claire knows that if she sides with Jack, she will have to betray the Newmans, who are always watching, always calculating. Victor, in particular, would never forgive her if he discovered she had secretly been helping the enemy. It was a dangerous line she was walking, and one wrong move could destroy everything she had worked for. But could she stand by and let Kyle become the kind of man who would become her father's worst nightmare? As Jack opens up about his decades-long feud with Victor, Claire realizes just how deep and personal the rivalry is. Victor has always been a looming shadow over Jack's life, and now, to Jack's horror, his own son seems poised to step into that shadow. The thought of Kyle turning into another Victor sends chills down Claire's spine, and she knows she must act, but how? Should Claire confront Kyle about what he's done? She knows the risks, but if she doesn't speak up, the consequences could be even worse. She decides that the best course of action is to talk to Kyle privately, hoping to bring the truth to light without causing an explosion. The Abbott family feud between father and son has reached its peak as long-standing tensions explode into a full-blown war. Jack Abbott has long tried to keep the family business Job Oats stable and strong, but his son, Kyle Abbott, is secretly stirring up trouble that threatens everything Jack has worked so hard to build. And now, an unforgivable act from Kyle has pushed things out of control, plunging Job Oats into an unprecedented crisis. Jack returns home in a rage. His eyes are dark, revealing deep frustration and anger. The reports he has just received from rival company Glissade have revealed an undeniable truth. Glissade's new product, which Kyle secretly helped develop, was actually stolen from Job Oats' own confidential ideas and documents. Jack cannot believe what he has just discovered. He immediately walked into his home office and accused his son of such a terrible act of betrayal. "Kyle!" Jack shouted, his voice shaking with both anger and hurt. "I saw the press release from Glissade. They're launching a product that was supposed to be Job Oats. You stole a product from your own family company." Kyle, who had just entered the room with a calm demeanor, showed no surprise or remorse. Instead, a smug smile appeared on his face. "Calm down, Dad," Kyle said in a cold tone. "Isn't business just about who gets to the finish line first? This is just a game and I won. You should be proud." But those words only increased the anger in Jack's heart. "Stealing from a company is a serious crime, do you understand that?" Jack shouted, unable to control his emotions. "You could face criminal charges for this. Do you realize how far you've gone? Job Oats hasn't launched a new product of this scale in a decade. And now you've ruined it all with an act of greed and betrayal." Kyle, however, remained calm, almost mocking. He looked at his father with a challenging gaze. "You know what it feels like when someone in your so-called family does something unforgivable, don't you?" Kyle replied, the bitterness in his voice clear. He was referring to past family conflicts, times when Jack had failed Kyle or hurt him in some way. For Kyle, this was a chance for revenge, not just in the workplace, but in their personal relationship. Jack stood there for a moment, stunned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The son he had loved and hoped for had become so cold, calculating, and vengeful. "It's amazing," Jack whispered, his eyes welling with deep disappointment. "I don't even recognize you anymore, Kyle. You've let your ego and arrogance cloud everything. You think you're winning, but you're just a pawn in Victor Newman's game and you don't even realize it." Kyle refused to budge from his father's warning. He had gone too far to turn back, and in his mind, this was his only chance to prove that he could surpass what his father had achieved. His arrogance had made Kyle think he didn't need to fear Jack, and that only made the situation worse. But Jack wasn't about to stop there. Kyle's betrayal had gone too far. After a moment of silence, Jack looked straight into his son's eyes, his voice cold and hard. "If I find any evidence that you have accessed Job Oats' sensitive documents to steal the product, I will not hesitate to take any legal action necessary. Even if it is you." This warning was the last word. Jack could not tolerate any more. He knew that what Kyle had done not only affected Job Oats' career and finances, but also threatened the survival of the Abbott family. Kyle, by his actions, had chosen the path of confrontation with his own father, and now the consequences were inevitable. Kyle remained defiant. He did not think that his father could actually take things to court. For Kyle, this was just a temporary conflict, and he believed that he could control the situation. But he was wrong. Jack had to make the most difficult decision of his life. He knew that without drastic action, Kyle would continue down the wrong path, and Job Oats might never recover from this blow. And so, Jack decided to go beyond warnings. He began to search for evidence, preparing for legal action that he never thought he would have to take against his son. Subscribe to Yonder for the latest news on our channel.